America keeps sleeping. Keith Abloh is here. He is a psychiatrist and Fox News contributor. Keith, am I jumping the gun here? I just see this Acorn thing and also the thing at the White House as a sign this guy has real issues with race, real issues.
Unfortunately, and I really mean it, Glenn, unfortunately, I have to agree with you. I don't think you're jumping the gun. Americans had as their fondest hope and prayer, I think, that they were electing a colorblind president who could embrace everyone equally. I think that was the hope. I think it was the hope more than some of his policies, that here was a man who could treat everyone equally. Instead, I think we get a transparent president in this case whose feelings about white America are coming forward again. Yeah. And I don't know, listen, as a psychiatrist, I'm trained to look at facts and say what fits and what doesn't, what's a theory that can hold water as to someone's personality and nature. You have someone who sat in a church with a pastor who called white people the devil, whose wife has not been proud of this country in her adult life until quite recently, who calls a Cambridge police sergeant stupid without knowing the facts, and whose friends are community organizers with questionable pasts. And so you add all that up and you say, look, there's more than an apology necessary here. This is a question of introspection. The president needs to look at himself and say, do I have prejudice that I wasn't even aware of, perhaps, toward white people?
Well, he's not, you know what, he's not going to do that. I think he's one of the more arrogant people I have ever witnessed in the office. I mean, I don't think he is. This man has absolutely no fear, and no fear of the American people, no fear in a good way, like as in fear God, no fear for the office of the presidency of the United States. I mean, you know what? You would say if somebody was arrested, a police officer arrested a black man breaking into a house, and I got on the air without any facts, and I said, look, I don't know the facts on this one, but let me tell you something. Blacks are always breaking into the house. You would, the country would go crazy because that's racist to say something like that. Yeah, they went and, you know, of course he's guilty. That's what this president did. This is a clear example of reverse racism.
It is, and it's embarrassing. I mean, it speaks not only to inexperience, but to something at the core here. And listen, Barack Obama told a moving story when he was running for president about his grandmother who would stiffen. She was a white woman, and he was her grandson. And she would stiffen if she saw a black man in the street and she were alone. She was afraid. And he detected that. And he said, I can no more essentially distance myself from my pastor, the Reverend Wright, than I can from my grandmother. They both had prejudice. Well, I think psychologically speaking, it's time for him to wonder whether something about having a white grandmother who had it in for or had fear of black men really soured him on white folks at some deep level. And I don't mean this with any hatred toward him. I think there's work to be done. Who doesn't have work to be done on his or her character? But it's got to be said, listen, that's what we need. We need a Jesse Jackson moment where after he ran for president, he said, after his Hymietown remark, if I've renewed old fears, charge it to my head and not my heart. I'm an imperfect servant. God is not finished with me yet. Think of the distance between that and, hey, come over for a beer. And another thing, Glenn, the president who has an overweight woman as his candidate for Surgeon General shouldn't be having people over for beers if he's still smoking. Because there we get a triad of the most dangerous health effects in the world, and he's putting forward a national health care agenda.
I have to tell you, I can't believe you didn't bring up...
smoking, drinking.
I know. I can't believe, though, that you didn't bring up the wise Latina woman on SCOTUS. This is the kind of thing, and I've got my next story is about how they're changing, you know, immigration without going through Congress. He is looking for social justice. He is looking. These are all code words.
He's angry.
He is angry, and he is looking for somebody who's going to change things the way he wants them changed, the way he can balance the scales for everybody, not the normal procedures that our founders had intended. Right? Wrong?
Correct. Listen, I think you're right. If the psychological theory is, here's somebody who harbors anger and resentment toward white people and some distaste for them or us, then you start looking again. What fits, what doesn't fit? And when you nominate someone for the Supreme Court who says, I can make better decisions as a wise Latina woman than a white male, well, there you go again. So how many of the facts need to fit a theory before we say, oh, we have a conclusion? Okay. Well, now we do. I'm willing to say we have a conclusion.
Oh, I do too. Okay, Keith, thank you very much. Now listen, America, I had a thought this weekend about this, that I think the paradigm in this country is about to change. And I mean that, I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but I think it's going to be huge, and it's going to be in everything. And I think that there is coming a time when the people in America, both white, black, Hispanic, doesn't matter, that have been pushed up against the wall on political correctness are going to say enough is enough. Big changes regarding immigration, and the government doesn't need the pesky approval of Congress. That's coming up next.